Hi everyone. So, decided that today was a good day for a little more card talk. Just kind of pulling a card out, showing you a few different artistic representations of it, and talking a little bit about where the connection has grown and shifted for me working with certain cards for years. And today, Two of Swords, Two of Arrows, Two of Knives really felt appropriate to talk about. It's one of those images that I think really sticks in your mind when you start working with tarot. And typically in Rider Waite Smith, it's an image of a woman with the crossed swords and her eyes covered, and she's typically in front of a body of water. I don't have the Rider Waite Smith deck with me to show you that image, but I do have the Aquarian Tarot image, and I thought that I would just take a moment and show that to you now. And here's the image from the Little Monsters Tarot, from the Two of Arrows. Two of Swords from the Lion Strider Tarot. And Two of Swords from the Shadowscapes Tarot. I want to get up close so you can see everything that's going on in this image, because we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we have Two of Knives from My Beloved Tarot of Vampires, one of my favorite depictions of Two of Swords. And I love that he is androgynous in this. Typically we see a woman, but in this image he could be both masculine and feminine and carry both aspects within the one being. And so it also encourages us, I think, to create a little bit of a shift within that the intuition can also hold a masculine energy as well, not just a feminine energy. Although that feminine energy has equal importance, I want to make sure we say that because it's very important. So these are the images that I was drawn to pull from, and I would have to say personally for me, when this card shows up and it's for myself, I'm doing a personal daily draw or a spread, and this card ends up coming up. To me, it's very much about not acknowledging a truth that I already know. And so to me, it's kind of saying there's a stalemate, there's a stasis that's happening because there's something that I won't acknowledge, and yet nothing in the situation can shift, can change, can go forward until, sorry, siren. I have the windows open today because it's actually warm enough here to have the windows open. Oh my God, I'm so happy about it. But the situation can't really start to shift until truths are acknowledged within. So it's a real encouragement to acknowledge what it is that you don't want to acknowledge, which is not easy. So this card is not like a hearts and flowers card. It's very much a very a call for radical honesty, and in some ways radical acceptance too, because it's saying I'm no longer going to pretend that I don't know this is the truth, because I'm unable to go forward until I admit this. So often I will find that there's some type of choice that comes up. If I'm reading for a client, this card will often be speaking about there's some type of choice, there's a decision to be made, and they're not wanting to acknowledge or deal with something, which means that they cannot actually move forward on the path until they do. So there is this other layer here too of choice. Now, as you start looking at different guidebook meanings for the Two of Swords, you get all kinds of delicious, meaty, fascinating food for thought. Excuse me. Sorry guys, allergies. So this is a card that you can really get into, and if you're someone who kind of struggles with the minor arcana at times, this is one of those cards that you can be like, oh, I can look at this almost like the majors, because I can really kind of meditate with this image. I can really get into the research aspect of the many layers that appear in this Two of Swords. So the other thing to remember is that we are dealing with the number 2, which is talking about the masculine and feminine and choice. Separation, togetherness, union, dissolution of union. And we're also talking about the element of air with the swords or the knives or the arrows, whatever your deck is depicting that as. And so we're talking about communication, we're talking about knowing, we're talking about the mind. So you can really start to weave this web of understanding as far as what the image is talking to us about. So I did pull aside the Shadowscapes guidebook and the Phantasmagoria book because I wanted to just read a little bit from these as food for thought as you are spending a little time with the Two of Swords with me today. So now the interesting thing with the Two of Knives and Tarot of Vampires is Ian really goes into a couple different directions with this. It's not just about knowing something that you don't want to acknowledge and that you need to acknowledge in order to move forward. We're also talking about mental stability, finding inner peace, constructive criticism, discussion and connection of minds, impartiality, legality, and a contradiction or paradox. So you can see where you can go a little bit deeper with these different layers and look at how, okay, maybe it's not a belief I have about myself that's keeping me from moving forward. Maybe it's about balance, or maybe it's about this aspect of contradiction, and so I need to look at the contradiction in order to unlock the door to move forward. So you've got some different pieces that you can go there with. And another thing Ian says is that this card involves a peaceful reconciliation of the energies involved in a situation or issue. We must weigh both sides of a problem with impartial fairness in order to reach a solution. By balancing the forces in our mind, apportioning justice, equalizing, and compensating, a contradictory situation is resolved peacefully. And so it says it can refer to legal matters, deep discussion, debate, or making judgment. So there is this analytical side that comes in with Ian that you don't always go to in a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meaning, which provides a lot of opportunity to look at the card as sharing a new layer. And so it's very exciting. Let me see. We may need to find our own peace of mind, or there may be inner blockages or contradictions that need to be resolved. Sometimes this card warns us that we are not seeing the truth, or that something will appear in our lives only when we make a firm choice. So it's this real, it is a balance of that intuitive and the mind, and we can see in the image itself where the disconnect is happening, because she's not able to physically see and the heart is blocked. So she needs to, or he needs to, in order to move forward, go within and open up the heart. Use the inner vision and open up the heart. Listen to the heart. Trust the heart. So it's not just about seeing what's in front of you. It's about going another layer, getting a little bit deeper, going into the discomfort, and asking yourself questions that allow you to see clearly enough to move forward, to break a pattern, or to make a change. So it is a call for stillness, because you do need to be still enough in order to get that clarity to move forward. So, and actually, I'm very enchanted with the Aquarian Tarot's Two of Swords image. Isn't she just beautiful? And I'm not a traditional imagery girl, but I really do love the imagery in this deck and feel a kindred to this Two of Swords image. It's a call to really be honest with yourself and to look within. That comes up with this card. Let me show you the Two of Swords image. And then what I do want to talk about a little bit especially is the Shadowscapes image. So this image is different than what you typically see. There's no body of water here. She's actually in the woods. She or he is in the woods. There's a lot of trees, root energy, and we have the two swans, which of course are representing the element of air here. What's interesting is that the two swans are each handing the person in stasis who's blocking themselves with the swords a gift. And I'm going to turn it around so you can see that gift more clearly in a second. But the heart, which the swan above at the head level is offering to the person, is that of, and I'm just going to reference the guidebook so I don't get this wrong for you. Open your heart, urges the swan, tendering the beating gem, the heart that stills when there is only the desire to take and not to give. And then at heart level, the swan below. So now remember again, as above, so below here. And we're talking about uniting these two elements here. The swan below offers a flower to the person and offers this at the heart level. Open your eyes, urges the swan, proffering a token, a flower, a poppy that is the sleeping death that existence becomes when stubborn barriers cannot be laid aside. So both are encouraging and calling for an acknowledgement of the other, of whatever has been forfeited or walled off in a situation. And so depending on where you are in your journey, you get to decide if it's the flower that you need to take or the heart that it's time to take. But either way, and I'm just going to try to do this so that you can see that image. Do you see the heart, the flower here, and then the heart above? So there's a real call with this card, especially in this image, to look at the intuitive side and again to be really honest with yourself. And I think the Little Monsters Tarot and the Line Strider, while less packing a punch to them as much as the other three do for me, they're a little less intense. The beautiful thing about the Little Monsters Tarot is that there's a real stillness in this deck because there's not a lot going on behind it. So you really get the sense that one of the arrows is pointed up as above and one pointed down, so below. And we have this energy of this monster who has antlers, so we're talking a little bit about Earth here, and yet is obviously some type of acrobat or doing something that gets them up in the air as well. So, and with this energy, especially in the Little Monsters Tarot, it feels like the dark moon to me when this comes up. So it is that, who am I? Who am I and what story am I perpetuating here? And with the Line Strider Tarot, we have that avian energy of the bird. I always find myself a little bit confused with this image. Like I have to kind of sit with it, and it almost makes my brain feel a little bit fuzzy, which means it's a great card for me to work with. Because we have this bird energy. It feels almost like a hawk, but it's got this, we've got this blue, which is of course this communication. And then of course the blinders have been put on the bird so that he or she cannot see, and the swords crossed in front so that they cannot move forward, and the heart energy is blocked. Now in this case, the entire bird's body is actually blocked. So not just heart and head are being blocked, but the entire body. So it's a real impasse. There is no way to move forward until this is dealt with. So that's what this card ends up bringing up for me when I work with it. And I have, as the years go by, much more of an appreciation for this card. I don't get nervous when it pops up like I used to personally. Like in readings, it doesn't make me nervous because I'm in my flow when I'm reading and it's about the client or the clairant. When reading for myself, though, I would get nervous seeing this image at the beginning because there is a solemnity to her or him. There is a real feeling of the weight of the situation and the matter at hand, and that forward movement simply isn't possible until it's dealt with, which is a lot. It's a lot, right? So there's a real, again, call to be still and to go within, at least even momentarily, so that you can get clear about the truth within you. So there's our tarot a day, card a day, keeps the doctor away. And yeah, I've just really been loving kind of pulling from multiple decks throughout the days now. Now that I'm getting some of my decks out of boxes and getting things set up, and really enjoying looking at fresh imagery, or imagery I haven't spent as much time with over the last few years. Tarot Vampires I spend a ton of time with, so sometimes the fresh imagery will help me to look at it in a different way, in a way that provokes soul searching and personal work. So, thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care, much love, many blessings, and I'll see you in the next video.